Hello and welcome. My name is Palma Accardi and you are watching Tidal Flooding Talk. We're filmed live every Sunday night here at the world famous Irish pub in Atlantic City.
I'm meteorologist Dan Skeldon, welcoming you, welcoming our guest, welcoming back Palma after her perfect attendance record was completely blown away last week, which makes me feel good because I've missed like 3. But it's nice to have you back, and let's introduce our guest.
Thank you, Dan. We have Paul Koelling here. He is
Hello.
a surveyor in our area. Would you like to tell us a little bit about your background and how you got started working with coastal resiliency?
Sure. Yeah, I'm a third-generation licensed land surveyor. My grandfather did it. My father did it. Then my father told me the satellites were going to take over that job, except he didn't realize they couldn't read deeds. So I changed careers from casino management and went back to school, got a surveying degree, become a certified floodplain manager.
Now, have all 3 generations been here in South Jersey?
Yes.
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 Okay.
Brigantine. My grandmother was a school nurse over there for decades. We owned Callahan's Bar, which is now Duckdown Tavern, for my whole life. And here we are.
So, born and raised in South Jersey.
Yes, sir.
And witnessing many storms, I'm sure, over the years as well.
Chasing it.
What's your most memorable?
I liked surfing a lot, so there were quite a few storms over the years where there was, you had to drive the car through, well, Dad's car through some pretty salty water to get there, but thank God he turned over vehicles quite often. The most memorable, obviously, is Sandy, flat out.
And where were you during Sandy?
I was in Northfield.
Okay.
Next day, or as soon as they let us back on the island, I could not believe it. Looked like a blizzard with just beach sand all over. It was nothing I've ever seen. You go up to Mystic Island in Little Lake Harbor, you really saw the damage. Tuckerton Beach, I mean, you could still see it up there, kind of. We were spared a little bit, I believe.
We were.
In my opinion.
I mean, it's. I mean, with everything lost down here, it's weird saying we were spared with the damage. But if you do go up the coast, you see how much worse it did get.
We got lucky.
We got lucky
Here in South Jersey, right here. Yes, we did.
All right.
Now,
Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's okay. You said you're a certified floodplain manager, which
Yes.
I heard is the test for that is very difficult.
Not as hard as a surveying test, but
Really?
yes,
Okay.
oh sure. The surveyors require an engineering license, and we sit with the engineers for a 2-day test. But the certified floodplain manager, if anybody's in the business, insurance agents, to you guys, to community officials, obviously, anybody who does anything with flood insurance needs to become a certified floodplain manager. Strictly because the conferences bring us the continuing education to, when things change, that they know how things are affected. Over the years, some of the insurance agents, I won't say some rated, insurance agent A and insurance agent B and insurance agent C are all supposed to have the same price for Mr. Smith, but he's getting way different results. So I see over the years as more people are getting trained, mostly by their bosses and hiring groups like Harleysville and whatnot to come in. They and at the certified floodplain managers, they're really starting to get stringent on that, and it seems like the policies are finally all what we theoretically want at the same price from each insurance agent.
So do you think you use that certification every day in your job?
Yes and no. More the surveying, because we are the ones in New Jersey, the only ones who are licensed to fill out the elevation certificates. The elevation certificates are the vehicle of communication for insurance, for house lifting, for new construction, for proposed construction, for under construction, the banks. That's the new thing. If you have a house that the foundation was just built and there's a loan on it, they want it under construction. They want to know right away if it's okay, which is a good thing, because then we catch any retrofits that an architect may have missed and we don't have to put garage vents in $50,000 garage doors and things like that. We can catch them under construction. A lot has changed since Sandy on that end. A lot more elevation certificates, different levels of construction.
So what is, surveyor 3 generations? What is amongst, the responsibilities that you have or your daily, what does a surveyor do for those that aren't familiar?
Well, A land surveyor establishes property lines through deed research and finding physical monuments, but we're talking about the other phase that we do is elevations, okay? So we've always done different types of elevations, be it all the subdivisions in EHT and Galloway. We laid out all the sewer and how deep they're supposed to go and the curbs and which way they're supposed to drain, and then the as-builds to make sure they build it right. Now that all the subdivisions there's no more woods left. We're on the beach and there's all this coastal flooding all day, every day, all week, in and out. It's phone calls from people confused. So as a surveyor, doing these elevation certificates, which is just a form, standardized form from FEMA, it changes from time to time. It must have changed 10 times in my career. Different things change. And then there's the new maps versus the old maps. And that's where a lot of difficulties come in. The ground that we're standing on here in the Irish Pub in Atlantic City is elevation 10 today, but tomorrow it's going to be elevation 8.7. So that's just a whole big monkey wrench.
So is all this, it has to be confusing for you guys, and it has to be even more confusing for homeowners and business owners on the island if this is something that's always changing. It's hard enough to understand if it doesn't change, but with the constant meddling of, and tweaking of things, does that just add confusion?
That part is adding a lot of confusion, a ton of confusion. Amongst us, we have to monitor and triple check ourselves now. We don't go GPS, that you can plug in with satellites 28,000 kilometers away and trust it. We choose not to do that because I don't trust it. However, the ground's not changing and the numbers are, and you're constantly this way or that way. So, for instance, the insurance, let's take City of Ventnor. They did the smartest thing, okay? Rather than asking for one elevation cert, they asked for two. One for the new maps, one for the old maps, so we don't confuse it. So every day we're constantly converting numbers in the field to set an elevation for new construction, elevation 10 feet above mean sea level. You got to do math the one way, minus 15 inches. In the office, you do it the other way. So you really have to watch yourself. For instance, after Sandy, that 1.3 foot conversion was misconstrued by all the design professionals and a couple zoning officials, and we actually built a couple houses. They designed a few houses 2.5 foot too low, because when you compound to 1.3 feet, it doubles 2.6, and a couple of houses actually under construction actually had to be lifted when the mistake was realized. That came from FEMA literature that was confusing. We had it hanging in our office, and I finally took it down because it was so confusing. And I just give everybody in the community the NOAA. Go to the NOAA website. It's a VertCon conversion, and we've been doing it since before Hurricane Sandy. We've been doing it since 1988 because some state agencies won it in the 88 datum versus the 29 datum. And that's what happened. So everybody's on cue. Well, now it's the surveyors are left with the headache. And we have we have conferences, and I'll talk about it. It's constantly, going back and forth. Thank goodness, and we are the last ones, Atlantic County, to convert to the 88 datum. We're the only ones left in the 29 datum. Cape May just adopted their maps, so they're all on it. Ocean County adopted them 88 datum right before Katrina, and then Katrina hit, and that's why Atlantic and Cape May County didn't get their new maps. Now that we're here, I can't wait for the new maps to come out.
Better late than never.
Cannot wait.
Yeah.
I do want to go back to the elevation
August 25th.
certificate for a minute. Now I know FEMA and flood insurance companies do advise people to obtain an elevation certificate, and that is your expertise. So what exactly are you looking for when you go to these properties and prepare the elevation certificate?
Okay, so the first thing we have to do is establish mean sea level, which is a arithmetic equaling 0. You can get a GPS machine and it'll put it on the curb, and it apparently tells you. I studied them. I studied them with PhDs, and won't do that way. So if you go to the tip of Longport to the seawall there, what did I say? There's brass discs. They're brass, and they're set by NOAA runs it now. NOAA runs it, but it was originally United States. Different survey divisions, and they're set all throughout the island. bunch in Longport, some on the bridges, or all through Margate, Atlantic City. And we run a level line, differential level, no different than a level you'll see on a construction site. A little bit more expensive, a little more precise, and we do a routine and kind of go like this through the island and check into another known elevation. So once you got two that agree, okay, we just set 10 in between. Then we take those and run them up to the bay and run them over here. And after 30 years, we have quite a large network, which takes us many hours a year to upkeep and get right, and make sure it's 88, not 29. So that's the first thing to do, is you have to establish mean sea level. Then comes the guts of the elevation certificate. The first thing FEMA looks at. And what happens is when people call me in my office, they say, do you have one? I have one. I said, read me this number, read me that number. So the first number I ask them to read is the height of their first floor, the main floor that they walk on. Okay? Just right now in New Jersey, in Margate, Atlantic City, the elevation is 10 feet, we'll say in our example. Okay? If it's 9.5 feet and they start going, oh gosh, I missed it by 6 inches, not to worry. The insurance agents apply the rounding rule, which is found in their lowest floor guide. So anything 9.5 gets rounded to 10, anything 10.4 gets rounded to 10, so you're fine. So I tell people, if you go out there and your floor is 9.5 or higher, that's step one. Generally, you don't have to lift your house. If it's below that, you're a house lift. That's why we are elevating houses all over. Because your insurance rate is going to be 6,000 to 8,000, or the rates are changing. That end is changing a little bit, but well, examples in Brigantine, a guy way before 10 years before Hurricane Sandy got an $8,000 rate. The sale died, and the owner calls me yelling at me, and so that was an $8,000 rate before Hurricane Sandy. So they're out there. It's just like back then, like I said, the different insurance agents have different ways of putting it into the system.
And every homeowner should have an elevation certificate, something we've talked about in the past, and it's a relatively, I don't want to say inexpensive, but compared to what it can cost you if you don't have one, it's something that every homeowner should have.
And especially the ones that call up and are so confused, and they've been so confused for 2 years. If I'm confused about something for 2 years, I'm waking up in the shower every day saying, how do I find the answer to this, or at least find peace knowing where the end of the road is? And that's kind of what I help people with. So on the phone, if they say 9.5 and higher, or if I'm in the field and I'm doing an elevation cert, the second biggest thing is, say most of the houses are on a crawl space. Okay? Is the crawl space below the grade outside? So, in other words, if you're kneeling on the ground and open your crawl space door, does it drop down like a foot or two or a couple inches, or is it about flush? If they say it drops down about 2 feet, I say, well, right away you have to fill it. Fill it with sand, fill it with concrete, fill it with flowable fill it with, the guy has a stone machine. It's really neat. You should get him in here. You should get him in here. He blows pea pebble stones into the crawl spaces. After you fill the crawl space and get it flush with the ground, and the reason they do that is FEMA feels that hydrostatic pressure will build up and either concave or collapse or damage the walls. Now, we all just lived through Sandy, and it didn't really happen, but it has happened around the country, and I've seen the videos, and hydrostatic pressure is the reason for this. So once you fill the crawl space, hopefully you don't need to fill the crawl space, then you just need to pop a couple of engineered flood vents in, the biggest one being Smart Vent, and they have the best videos to educate yourself on it. After the storm, did the vents work? Yes, they worked. A lot of them, and if you do install Smart Vents, make sure you put the 2 little clips in, because if not, like Sunset Marina and Summers Point, your 150 vents will be all in the Fragmuddies filled with stone and Fragmuddies. Although the vent now works because it's just a hole, it did its job, it worked. The contractor's got to make sure they put these 2 little clips in there, or you're going to be buying, doors next time the storm happens. All the houses along the beach, the flood vents did work. They got filled with sand, caked, but they worked. So I think everybody should have an elevation certificate to get to the end of the story, so they don't have to think about it. And I also think they should mitigate their homes by putting flood vents in and getting their insurance rates as low as possible, let alone saving their home if something, the article the other day said we're going to be underwater by 2026 or something.
Well, yeah, There's been articles out forever. We were supposed to be underwater by now. I believe the articles from the 90s. But what's the cost, let's say, of an elevation certificate and then of flood vents? Like you want to put in, let's say, one flood vent. What would that cost?
We charge at Paul Koelling and Associates. We charge $450. We have been since the 80s. Some competition came in. So what I did is, having experience, I personally installed flood vents in about 80 homes, built a bunch of crawl spaces when surveying was slow. So what I do now is I give people two of them. One as is, and one for the proposed conditions to mitigate the building. Okay, and then they take that to their agent and get two quotes. And then you'll get a $3,000 quote, an $800 quote for fully insured, and then you call me back and say, "Who does this work?" And then we send you the contractors that we feel can do the work.
Speaking of the flood vents, how simple is it to install? Are there ever any challenges that arise depending on the
Some
property?
houses are, if you're handy, you can do it yourself if it's already vented. There's two rules of flood vents only, that they have to be installed on two separate exterior walls and no less than 12 inches from the ground below, be it inside the crawl space or outside. For instance, in West Wildwood, if you go down there, you'll see flood vents 4 foot high in the air on the people's garages. But when you drive up the ramp, it's flush with the garage floor. That counts. If you have vents in there and they're all the way 3 foot in the air, you can't just pop them out and replace them. Some people are lucky and it's as simple as popping them out and putting the new ones in if you're handy. But other ones, you need a mason, you need to cut through concrete. You're always going to need them on a garage, and people usually don't have them on a garage. So people are going to have to cut through concrete. Some of the houses here on the island are from the 20s. They're double brick. As soon as you go into there, the mortar just falls apart like sand. And then next thing you know, a little hole you're trying to cut this big is huge. So professional.
So Jason Johnson asked, so Paul, if the survey states after a house lift that a house is approximately 4 inches too low, that's not an issue, question mark. For example, if finished floor is supposed to be 11 and the survey says like 10.71, that should be rounded? Does the rounded still apply there?
We're talking for insurance language, the NFIP, the National Flood Insurance Program, unlike the community officials. The community officials are mandated by the Governor Christie order. Governor Christie had to do that order or nobody would be getting $150,000 of REM money. So that is two different lanes.
Okay.
You got to go with the community official on that one.
Okay, that's good to know.
For insurance, though, they'll round that.
Okay, thanks for the question, Jason. Thanks for the answer.
Mm-hmm.
Now, on flood maps, there are several different zones. Could you tell us maybe the difference of these zones and maybe if some properties are more vulnerable than others?
Yeah, and if anybody out there watching remembers the newspaper, right after Sandy, when they had the V-zone lines out, my phone lit up because everybody I know lives in a V-zone.
Yeah, everyone was in a V-zone.
Paul, what's this going to do to my flood insurance program? I said, well, I just helped a guy in Ocean City who was in a V-zone. We took his flood insurance rate from $44,000 to $36,000, and their jaws just all dropped. And it got very political, as it should have, and the V-zones are mostly gone, thank goodness. Some of the V-zones that currently exist here in Atlantic County are on the highest grounds of the island, particularly in Brigantine, and Mr. Stinson over there corrected that. He did a great job over there. I don't think anyone really has to worry too much about V-zones so much anymore as we did in Brigantine. Cape May County, they were very active, and even Atlantic County, very active in getting rid of those V-zones. Should they be there? I'm not sure. What's a V-zone? A V-zone is V for velocity. So, well, is it fair the beach properties are on the V-zone, the highest part of the island? No. Did they get any sandy water? No. But I was, only 2 years old in 1972 when the maps came out. So a V-zone has 30 determinations that go into it. Like, if I wanted, most of it is due to waves, velocity of the waves hitting. So if we have a beach front house and there's no dunes like we have now and it's in a V-zone, the second house isn't, because that house next to it acts as a blockade for it, and it's not going to knock it down. The most common is the A zone, which we're dealing with now. So the A zones, I'm actually doing a lot of these right now. It's called a letter of map amendment, okay? So like in Linwood especially, Egg Harbor Township, those flood zones, when you want to keep your basement, FEMA doesn't feel that it's going to flood from the basement, although Ventnor City Hall did during Sandy. they feel it's going to come from the outside, and the rules are I can remove you from a flood zone, totally, from the A zone into a B zone. A B zone for Boy is outside the 100-year flood, outside the special flood hazard area, and your insurance premium either goes to under $500 or the bank says you don't need it. We're doing a lot of those, and I learned about those from being in Florida where it's flat. So these maps that we have, okay, they only guarantee to a foot vertically. So if they're wrong by half a foot in Florida, see how many miles of land that is? It's flat. So these surveyors are saying, learn how to do these lomas, because when these new maps come out, you're going to need to, you're going to need to, you're going to need to. Well, now that all these great community officials in Atlantic County, Cape May County got together, they really did a great job of having to do most of that. They made those zones already for the community, which is fantastic. Right now, before the new maps come out, we're actually marketing some people to get into us to do this. And it's kind of working.
Do you think now, everyone's getting on the same datum, hopefully we're all going to get on the same page. Do you think it gets easier from here on out? Or?
For me, it does.
Okay, that's good.
For me, explaining it to people does, because not only is it confusing to deal with the components of the elevation cert, I try to make it as easy as possible, but then when you throw the map, then I always have to throw the new maps on there, because what if you bought a $2 million home that's compliant today and it isn't tomorrow? You're looking at me. So I've been studying these new maps, making sure I don't miss any of them, and when you take out that 1.3 feet, yes, it'll become way better for everybody. It's very common to check even checking the wrong one. It's just the red tape to get back. It goes to the federal government. 3 months later, it's coming back. So I can't wait, Dan.
Do we have any more Facebook questions?
Lots of shout-outs and hellos. No other questions, which means either you did such a great job explaining it that all the questions are answered, or just lots of hellos and listeners so far today. So Jason's question, which I'm glad you did answer, the only question so far tonight.
Okay.
Do you want to talk about anything that we haven't covered? I mean, I know it's a wide-ranging topic, and you're third generation. You've probably seen a lot and done a lot. But is there anything you think the average, homeowner, business owner at the shore, should know that doesn't know?
Yeah, if you have masonry walls, you have a chance of saving your building with flood vents. If you have wooden walls, like a slab on grade, like a Mystic Island home, you have to elevate. Go drive by Statons in Ocean City down the alley. You'll see flood vents all over the place. There's a lot of commercial things being done all over the place right now. Finished and unfinished. When it turns into commercial, like if you have to sign, if you elevate your home right now, you have to sign. It's only going to be used for storage, right? Margate, Ventnor. And I think when it goes commercial and you have these ground floor units there, it's a different set of rules. So keep that in mind.
Good advice.
Other than that, we're here in Linwood, or my company is in Linwood at any time. 927-0279, Paul Koelling and Associates. And we do answer the phone a lot. We generally have to call you back, leave a message, and we do call everybody back and get answers for you. I feel it as a fiduciary duty, being local and having some knowledge, a little bit of knowledge.
Thank you, Paul. Now, Tidal Flooding Talk is brought to you by the New Jersey Coastal Coalition, and we would like to thank you, Paul, for coming out tonight, and we are presenting you with an Irish Pub t-shirt.
Hey.
Not your first time at the Irish Pub, right?
Oh, no. Many hours.
And we're proudly here every Sunday night, 7 o'clock. Irish Pub is a proud sponsor. So Tidal Flooding Talk, 7 p.m. You can come on down and sit at the bar and watch, dine, drink before and after the show. Of course, you can always join in or just listen in like a lot of you guys are doing tonight, the online conversation. Jason actually has one follow-up question for you, Paul. Does wood have to be green if it touches the foundation concrete? I'm not sure.
Wood is wood, and when I come up, if it's wood, it's wood.
Right. Okay.
Now, next Sunday,
when I say masonry walls, it can't be like stucco over chicken wire or something like that with a wood-framed wall.
Okay.
It has to be solid masonry.
Okay.
Next Sunday, our guest is Michelle Brunetti-Post from the Atlantic City Press.
All right, again, New Jersey Coastal Coalition working to spread awareness and mitigation and just make living at the shore easier. We all love it, and it's a little more challenging today with storms, but that's what we're here. So we have to see you guys back here next Sunday at 7.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.